What's up, YouTube? It's Carolina Calvin coming back to you with another NBA video. And in this video, I want to talk about my starting lineup if you're picking players from the 90s. Now, like my previous video, which was current players, in this video, I'm only going to be doing players who spent most of their careers in the 90s. So, they could have played in the 80s, but most of their career has to be in the 90s. And I would say please do that as well, because there are some guys who played briefly in the 90s who say were great players. And we know they were great players. So I just did it for guys that mostly played in the 90s. Starting at point guard, I'm going John Stockton. Now, there was a couple players I was going through. Gary Payton was on my mind. He was another choice I could have possibly made, who I was actually thinking about. Kevin Johnson, guy is so underrated. The only thing that really hurt his career was injuries. But you look at some of his peak numbers. I remember one season, I believe it was 24 and 12 or something like that, with like 4 or 5 rebounds. Guy was balling. But like I said, injuries was a problem. Stockton was the guy I wanted to go with because he was the guy who was barely injured, and I think a lot of people overlook some of the things that he could do. Like, okay, yeah, he's number one all time in assists, about 15. Well, I can't remember the exact number, but it's over 15,000. It's gonna be a long time before anyone passes that. The guy, a lot of people know he was good at good with his hands, stealing the ball, playing the passing lane, stripping players, and that those are things that show up in his numbers, total numbers. You see the steals, you see the assists, but as a scorer, he didn't take a bunch of shots. The most shots he took was around 11 a game. That was at a peak, 11 to 12, and he averaged, I think, at peak 17 points. So he wasn't taking a bunch of shots. So you can't say he couldn't score. He wasn't that type of player. He wasn't a guy who was going to take 15, 20 shots a game. He just wasn't that guy. He was a guy trying to set the table for his other team, his other teammates. And he had a guy like Karl Malone who got most of the shot attempts. I think with him, his offensive game is overlooked outside of the passing, but his offensive game in terms of scoring, I think if he would have took more shots, he would have scored more points, because even averaging around 17, I think for his total career was about 13. And as we know, as players get to the end of their careers, that affects their numbers as their production drops. They're not able to do some of the same things they were able to do early in their career. But I think scoring, he, like I said, he doesn't attempt a lot of shots. And it's really hard to gauge, would he have been a great scorer or what not. But he was efficient. 11 shots, shot mostly 50%, somewhere around there, 49%. But I like some of the things he brought defensively. He was going to get 110% defensively, and that's something that's rare nowadays with a lot of guys taking plays off, man. You see it, especially off the ball, but this guy didn't take plays off. And he was going to be able to set up teammates. Wasn't flashy. He just made some of the simple passes. He's one of those guys you could say fundamentals. He wasn't flashy at all. He is a fundamental player. At shooting guard, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are gonna guess who this guy is, but I'm quickly going to say who it is. It's Jordan, and no one else really came to mind. Someone can go with Clyde Drexler, great player, but Jordan is unanimous pick at shooting guard. Do I even need to say more about this guy with something that hasn't already been said? One of the greatest scorers to ever play the game. Elite defender. Passing numbers dropped, because he took a different role in the team. But the things that he did do well. I would say one thing that Jordan didn't entirely do well was 3-point shooting. But he didn't take a bunch of threes. But I can't say for the most part he wasn't in terms of really high percentage. But as a guy who increased his level of play with a regular season, playoffs, finals. Not too many players have done that, throughout their careers, and he's the guy who has increased his production with, as the competition got tougher, he increased his level of play. He's the guy I'm going shooting guard. At small forward, I'm going Scottie Pippen. Um, when he first came in, they he wasn't that good of a player, but you saw potential. And in '91, they saw at least the defensive side of his potential, how versatile a defender he was. He gave Magic fits. Magic was still able to get his Magic, but they saw his potential defensively, and you saw it later on as he was integral to the Bulls winning championships. The guy can defend multiple positions. A little bit inconsistent with his offense, especially later on in his career. We'll say his best years were the early '90s, between '92 and 95, '96. That's, I think, was the peak of his offensive game, where he was the most consistent. '97, '98 seasons, he was dealing with injuries, so his offensive game took a dip. But defensively, passing abilities, rebounding, very versatile player. I'm going with Scottie Pippen at small forward. At power forward, two guys I was thinking about that was gonna pick, but I ended up going with one of them, and that's Charles Barkley. The other guy that I was thinking about going with was Karl Malone. You can't go wrong with either guy, but I'm gonna go with Charles Barkley. Great rebounder. And being around 6'4", 6'5", a lot of people didn't think he would be able to play at the NBA level. He definitely proved them wrong. If you watched, it's like a documentary about the '84 draft. Amazing documentary. Go, if you're a fan of basketball, go watch that documentary. It talked about Jordan. It talked about Hakeem. Talked about Barkley, Stockton. Check that draft out. check that documentary out. I apologize. Um, there's some things that's also underrated with him. A lot of people, when they talk about his offensive game, offensive rebounding, um, you know, his ability to finish around the rim at that size, because he was just able to move guys out the way with his. He was really strong. He had a good outside jump shot, and a lot of people don't really speak about that. Most people, his nickname Round Mound to rebound. That's what most people focus on, his ability to rebound. But you look at his numbers. I believe he's one of four or five players. Can't remember the exact numbers. Over 20,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and I want to say 5,000 assists. He's one of like 4 or 5 players, and this is going straight off the top of my head. Please, down in the comment section, tell me exactly what that was, the exact numbers. But he, like I said, passing underrated, and jump shot underrated. A lot of people just talk about his rebounding. Defensively, not that great, because he was at the power forward position at 6'4", 6'5", and it hurt him because he wasn't able to contest these taller guys' shots. But as a guy who you really couldn't back him down because he was really strong, so I think that gave him one advantage. But he didn't. He wasn't going to be able to contest a bunch of shots at that side, at that height. That does it for power forward. At center, there are a few guys you can go with, but I already had in my mind the guy I was definitely going to go with. That's Hakeem Olajuwon. There's not many things this guy can't do, and you go back and watch the games. As Shaq said it, he didn't do the same post move twice. Now, he had his patented dream shake. That was one of his patented moves. But you just watch the footwork, the myriad of shots, poetry. Now, that's what I'm talking about, basketball, and I mentioned poetry. Just look at this guy play. He's one of my favorite players in the history of the sport. He, like I said, myriad of shots. He played both ends. He ran the floor. He ran the floor really well. You remember a very popular video of him blocking Kevin Johnson's shot. Ran him down, blocked the shot. Amazing. Just showed his athleticism, leaping ability. Defend multiple positions at that center position. He was a bit undersized, about 6'10", 6'11", but just so many things that he could do. He was a great shot blocker, long arms. And this was a guy that didn't up until, I would say before college, he was mainly a soccer player. So he didn't have a bunch of experience playing basketball, and this guy was able to become that good. I don't know how, but he was able to become that good. Players still to this day go to, I guess he got some kind of like camp, go to him to improve their footwork. Still to this day, it's impressive. He's also one of those guys who I believe is also on that list with Barkley, 20,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 5,000 assists. Like I said, if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comment section exactly what those numbers are. And I know those two players are on it. Let me see. Was there anything else? Because there was something else I wanted to say. Some of the other guys that I did think about. Shaq. Shaq was a beast in the 90s. Those Orlando teams were really good, especially playing alongside Penny. They went to the finals. They lost, but Shaq was a beast in the 90s. You got Patrick Ewing, David Robinson. The center position was really good then. But Hakeem to me is, you can say it's close with him and Shaq. David Robinson was pretty good. But I think Hakeem, his versatility on both ends of the floor makes him the choice for me at center. But that pretty much does it for this video. I plan on doing a video for the 80s. Let me know down in the comment section your five, point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. I would say just do guys, most of their career in the 90s. Now every single guy that I picked, their career started in the 80s, but most of their career, especially their, I wouldn't necessarily say, well, yeah, most of these guys' best or prime numbers were in the 90s. But let me know what your choices is down in the comment section. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe. Thanks for watching.